Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Welcome back to part 2 of our National Breathing Apparatus Challenge collaboration. In part 1, we went straight to the fireground. Loads of teams, one scenario, smoke issuing from a rented property with 3 persons unaccounted for, 2 seats of fire, and a 30-minute clock. We heard about everything in the heat of the moment, real crews reflecting on what they did in real time. But today, we're stepping behind the scenes into the minds of the people who build that challenge, the ones that judge it, the ones that assess it, and live it every single year. These are the assessors, the organisers, and the driving force behind one of what I think is the most respected firefighter development events in the UK. These are the individuals who design the pressure, who balance realism with safety, structure with chaos, getting all the teams in the competition, all the collaboration going. They see every strength, every stumble, and every little spark of innovation from crews all across the country. So in this episode, we'll talk about what's going into building the National BA Challenge, how the scenarios are created, what their assessors are looking for, when things are changing, where things are moving, and what trends they're seeing in firefighter performance nationwide. We'll dig into how training and operational culture is evolving and what the challenge is revealing about the modern UK fire and rescue service. This is the other side of the fire, the other side of the smoke, if you excuse the pun, the people shaping how firefighters learn, adapt, and improve. So, welcome to episode 411, the National Breathing Apparatus Challenge, part 2 of the debrief, and I'll see you on the other side. Phil Sanders.
Mark Andrews.
Michelle Hickmott.
So what is the purpose of the National BA Challenge? Is it competition? Is it collaboration? Is it to raise best practice? Why has it been going so long?
Okay, so for us, and the National BA Challenge was formed, we think about over 15 years ago.
2007, I think.
Yeah, so it's about that long. Yeah. And it initially started out as quite a small concept to promote best practice, and that is our strapline. It's all about us promoting good core skills, good breathing apparatus swearing, instant command, fireground operatives, and entry control. The kind of what are the core elements, bread and butter of the fire service. And over that time, it's grown and grown and grown. And obviously this year we've had a really successful year. We've had 19 different fire and rescue services enter, which we are we're incredibly proud of that. And 21 teams in total, which is our full capacity at the minute. You never know in the future. But it's the National BA Challenge is about all of the things you've just mentioned. Mm-hmm. So not just best practice, but it's about networking, sharing best practice, collaboration amongst all of the fire and rescue services, with our sponsoring partners, with the Fire Service College. It's about how we look to improve as a sector, how we respond to fires in buildings. So we tend to look at trends across the weekend. What are people doing really well? What are the focus areas for people at the moment? As an example, hot topic for the past few years and continues to be how we manage contaminants. You know, that's been a new introduction to MBAC over the past few years because we see how important that is to firefighters and to services. So it's a whole host of everything you've just mentioned, really.
So as we've seen the role evolve, you spoke about decontamination and stuff like that now, is it evolving more, because people hear it as the National BA Challenge and we think it's centric around the breathing apparatus, what the people are doing in there. Is it growing more to include things like the command and decision-making process? Is it about teamwork? Is it about technical prowess and people's awareness of droplet sizes and flow rates? Or how do we balance that element of it? Because you can't get too technical. I was just having a chat with Steve before he left, and some of the different instructors we speak to around the world, and some of them are heavy into the technical science world, but I sit in both camps. I'm like, I don't want to know the molecular makeup of marmalade. I want to know if you can open a jar. Do you know what I mean? It's good to know that stuff, but how does it sort of help us? This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fireground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
At its core, it's a national BA challenge.
Yep.
So it's about BA, and the scores are purposely weighted towards BA.
Okay.
Because that's the nature of the beast. But it incorporates all those things at the same time. So, we've got scoring for all the disciplines, incident command, fireground, echo as well. And it's really important that they're still involved, but they don't necessarily overshadow it. It's got to be an effective BA team that ends up winning the challenge one way or another. But we do incorporate all these bits. So decontamination is already in the scoring and how we deal with that. But the long and the short of it is, which we say to all the crews, it's treat it as a realistic incident. The job we're in is balancing risk.
Yeah.
We can't make this job completely risk-free.
No.
But we've got to take, calculated risks to savable life. So that, that's what the focus has got to be, really.
One of the things we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years is massive increase. It's now in terms of the teams, it's second nature now. But when the sets come out, they're bagged up, the kit is bagged up.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that more regular every year. So it is, the message is getting out there, it is sinking in, people are paying attention to it, which is really good to see.
The core role of this, as we keep alluding to, is BA, but we've had a few more, unfortunately, fatalities in the last 18, 24 months in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. Do you ever try and build scenarios around identifying any kind of trends? I mean, in the last couple of fatalities, in this example, that there's elements of building construction been involved in it, but you don't want to start getting away from what is the core part of the. Do you know what I mean? It's a balance, because there's NFCC and national learning organisations and operational learning notes that come out. You don't want to dilute what you do, but as technology evolves, as we've seen smoke cloaks come out, decontamination, Michelle's mentioned, do you ever try and suit scenarios to encompass trends like that? And I appreciate it's difficult to do.
Where possible, we can, if we can get it in, but we have to bear in mind trying to set the same scenario over 3 venues for 21 different teams.
Yeah.
Sometimes difficult.
Yep.
If we're going to look at external construction, then the buildings need to reflect that.
Exactly.
And it's not always the case where we can do. I think it's something we certainly look at regional runoffs, where we have a bit more with one firehouse, one day of running sessions that we can control that. We've put cars into buildings before now. We've done wheelie bin fires on buildings. And again, a lot of that has come from our experiences and incidents that we've been to where we can actually share the learning from it.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the tragic incidents that we've seen certainly within the past 12 months, and the way in which we make sure we're aligned with how fire and rescue services are learning is really important to us. So we're building our relationships with the NFCC, with National Operational Guidance, to make sure that we can complement what fire and rescue services are focusing on within reason, as Mark's just said. There's only
you want to
so
encourage
much
them to be ambitious, but you also don't want to be saying something different, muddy in the waters, and going, NFCC or whatever, don't know what they're doing. This is what the real people know at the tip of the sword, and it's balancing that. You can't have 2 narratives going on.
There's only so much we can achieve in a 30-minute exercise where we're looking at all of the different disciplines, and as Phil said, BA is at the core, but we know lots of command decisions influence how the BA wearers understand their brief, how risk and hazards are identified and managed. So there's only so much we can do, but I think the importance for us is our engagement, our relationships with services. And the way in which we do that is by having a cohort of assessors that come from all over the country. So the assessors for us are really the reach back and the link into each fire and rescue service. We pick subject matter experts, we pick the best assessors in their own right and in their own field. But it's that continuation throughout the year of understanding, okay, what's real for you right now down in the south, what's happening in the north, and how can we bring all that together to help the sector at the challenge.
Because you want to encourage, like you said, that networking, that innovation. You want them to go back feeling inspired and maybe to not challenge, but like rethink or reframe some of what they're doing, but you don't want to go back feeling confused or demoralised or like, oh my God, we're doing something dangerous. Do you know? So on a similar vein to that, ventilation. how do assessors assess on methods of tactical ventilation? Because again, there's a variance of equipment, methods in use, risk appetite in different organisations.
Yeah, I mean, look, every service does it differently. There are different levels, there are different equipment, and it's not marked specifically enough to affect that. In reality, as long as they've got a suitable plan that's against the information they've got and the kit they've got and the techniques they've got available to them, and they can deploy that appropriately, they're going to get decent marks. So I think probably the perfect example today was I saw hydraulic ventilation employed, and it was just awesome.
Yeah,
fans are brilliant. But in this building stock, they're not necessarily the weapon of choice.
It's hard to pressurise some of these buildings leak and they're large.
Hydraulic, and the feedback from our assessors inside was the impact it had was massive.
Yeah.
And it was just a little bit of hydraulic ventilation when they had an opportunity just to clear an area, and it worked fantastic.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behaviour, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
I think just on that point of, there's lots of different policy, procedure, equipment that comes through the challenge. Because we've got so many different services. The skill of the assessors is being able to understand people's tactical plans, how they're implementing it, how they're conducting their own policy and procedure in a safe manner, and then scoring against it. And, that is the skill of the assessors, to be able to feedback that, okay, yes, you've performed really well within your policy and procedure.
Do they have to stick within their own policy and procedure?
If
they come here and think, you know what, we don't do phase 3 where I am, or we don't do, positive pressure attack, I'm going to do it here because I think it's the best thing to do.
Our expectation is that they come here and they operate within their training and capability.
Okay. Yep.
So I wouldn't expect anybody to come here and try and do something they've never been trained to do, because that's usually not going to end.
And also it wouldn't go well for them if they did hurt themselves doing something they hadn't been trained to do.
The real challenge for us then is how we then moderate across all of the services. But again, it gives us that opportunity, and it gives the teams the opportunity when they meet later on at the awards dinner to talk about, our service does this, what does your service do? And we start to share some of that good practice.
In a similar comparison, search procedures, whether some people are going directional, whether they're following a flow path, if their service now dictates a compartmental arrangement, that will have a big effect on how quickly they proceed through a building. So, given that I imagine timing and execution and sort of intentional progress when they're in the building is taken into account, there can be a limitation with search procedures. So how do we balance that? And if we are talking about best practice, when we're giving that feedback, obviously we can't be telling them to do something they're not doing it, but we could perhaps explain to them, I'm sure you do, how that particular approach may have limited their progress.
Because it's all about learning at the end of the day. And if something has hampered a crew in making enough progress or getting to the fire, then we'll talk about it and debrief, and something to take back to service to even discuss and maybe talk through with training departments as a best practice. Again, what we're here, what we're all about. Today, for example, out of the 7 teams we've had in terms of progress made was a variation of compartment searching, directional briefs. They've all got about the same amount of distance and progress made.
Okay.
So I think in the scenarios we've set, it didn't really matter.
Okay.
I think certainly in the 15 odd years I've been doing it, I've seen a shift. I think this year has probably been the biggest. Directional searches are still there, but every time it's been deployed, it's been, I think you should do this.
At your own discretion. Yeah.
You DRA it, and if you think it's wrong, then
I've not been in that building.
Yeah.
When you get in there, you make your own DRA, and if this isn't making sense, and you've got support an argument for it, you do what you believe is best. What about when it comes to choice of media? This is something that I've seen, again, a variation of hose reels versus lay flats and people's assessment of enough water, effective flow rate to be able to extinguish something. And are they just parroting to be a hose reel, to be a hose reel? Because that's what was always done. We did see some teams going with lay flat. Like, are they assessed on that? Do we think the average firefighter understands because we focus so much on pressure in the UK? Do we have a good enough comprehension of flow rate? And does it matter? Because I'll start with a senior officer watching one of them, and he said, I've seen it put out with that my entire career. And I said, well, I agree. Like, they'll all go out eventually. They'll all become a field control fire, and they'll go out. But could we have kept it to one compartment? Could we have kept it to a single floor? Like, is that brought into the factoring?
Yeah. Look, every fire is absolutely unique. Even the 7 times we run on each venue here today, they're still slightly different every time in the way they react.
Yeah.
You can only deal with what you've got in front of you. A lot of services have different procedures. We've seen ones today that are, very used to having probably a lot more resources a lot quicker. But the scenario isn't that. It's very clear on a scenario you're tipped out due to spate conditions. You're not getting another truck for 30 minutes. And I think you've got to.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
You've got to take the scenario as it is and react accordingly.
Yep.
There's no one size fits all. We did see some with lay flat. It probably did have a little bit of an impact on it, but did it potentially outweigh the risks or control the risk? Possibly.
My argument is not that one is right or wrong. It's that, what was your logic behind choosing that? Why did you choose it just because that's what you've always chosen? Or was there we were talking about, information decision making. What were you basing that decision on? Or did you just go, let's see if it works. If we need bigger water, we'll get And
that's the key with pretty much every criteria we've got.
Yeah.
You've got to have some rationale behind it. There's resources are marked for the incident commander. There is nothing that says it's X amount of pumps for this incident.
Do you ask them the rationale behind the choice of extinction media?
Yeah, we ask them for their tactical plans and effectively what they're going to do with those resources. And I had a range from 3 appliances all the way through to 8.
Yeah.
And that's what they're used to potentially. Somebody could have made more, but they know in their service they won't get more within the time limit that they feel it will take to deal with that incident. Other services will. But you've got that rationale, that justification, and that risk assessment behind it. That's what we're marking, not the actual result of what you're deploying.
Yeah. Entry control. I'll probably drag it into conversations at times, but it's come up regularly when I speak to international guests and how we approach it in the UK, and their bemusement at times of our rationale behind using it. Incidents and scenarios like we've been seeing today, they all had 5 personnel on their trucks. The decision to put in entry control and not, I think everybody did. I think absolutely everybody did. Everybody moved.
Not straight away.
Well, that's the thing, because it's one of those caveats in there when resources permit and all this sort of stuff. And there's so many other things other services and other nations would argue that person could be doing rather than stood there watching air go down, even when you as a competent BA wearer are already I train you, I assess you to make sure you monitor your air. Yeah, I'm going to put someone else in to monitor your air as well. At a certain point, the complexity dictates it, and I think it's important. When do you think we should, it's an emotive question maybe, when do you think we should be transitioning to having that entry control in? I know what it says in the guidance and all that sort of jazz, but I think sometimes that is a real wasted person when you see Other nations will go, you know what, I'm going to use a team of 3. This one's going to do door control and they're going to manage the line in. Then we've got, and we're going to make a lot more progress with that 45 versus one person stood there.
The thing is, I think they're not. I'm sorry, I'll come to you in a second, but I don't think there's a right or a wrong of when.
Okay.
I think the good teams out there, that person is very multifaceted in what they're doing. So yes, they're stood at the board, but they're also a support for the officer in charge. They are assisting with the bits, things that are going on. They're also a stationary person that's monitoring that building all the time, that allows the officer in charge to be a bit more mobile. They've got that ability to keep an eye on what's going on and report back conditions. I don't think I saw anybody today where I felt the Echo was a wasted person.
Okay.
They're bringing some real value to the team. When they're deployed...
the ones that went in straight away that... Because if I just chose to put it in right near the end of this 30-minute time gap, because I want them to do alternate egress, I want them to do the casualty handling, I want them to maybe assist at the door, I want them to do a lot more stuff rather than just get that set up and go and stand there. And I'm just playing devil's advocate because there are people that would love to see it got rid of unless we've got 6 wearers.
I think from MBAC's perspective, we talk about gold standard, we talk about promoting best practice.
Absolutely.
And I think, especially you mentioned, the firefighter fatalities. I think the monitoring and welfare of crews is got to be high up there, especially with building construction, with modern technology, BA sets and thermal image cameras, we can become over-reliant. So having that additional control measure, and certainly when we're setting scenarios, and we want to see that in place to promote that best practice, rather than the example you've just given, just putting entry control at 28 minutes in place when you've used that individuals to do anything else.
Only because of the constraints of this. My argument at an incident would be, let's push it up to you're allowed more wearers to operate under, as long as the incident commander's got effective communications with them. I worry that we're not using, because I see them not used in other nations and they're not killing firefighters every week. So I go, we're doing it different. I don't know which is better or worse. I just think there's an argument for both, and we've been so ingrained in it because of the fatalities, in London and when it first came in, and now we do it, and it's a non-negotiable. But as crews are shrinking across the nations,
I don't know. It's just a personal opinion, but I think it's still a non-negotiable. I think there is a very small window at the beginning of the challenge where you could do without. That window, I think, is fairly, like I say, small.
So people wouldn't be marked down for not going straight to stage 1 if they...
Not straight.
There's a lot of people who did rapid deployment today for a period of time. That wouldn't go against them because of the rationale.
Because you get exactly what it says. You get safety critical tasks done, stop the escalation incident potentially. Yeah. But it's pretty soon before it's pretty not long before I'd expect an Echo to be in place, really, because they do so much more. As part of the Echo role, it's not just watching the times and the thing that a truly good Echo on the ground today was logging a lot of things, monitoring temperatures, potentially if we've got a tick available to them, and all sorts of things like that. That they can still function as an Echo, but they're bringing so much more value to it as well.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture and supply of incredible safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. That's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake. Do we anticipate a time, given that we're trying to reflect what's happening out there in all of the services, that the MBAC teams will go to 4?
So do you know what? A really good question.
Because if we go, well, how many people are still having 5s? Is this realistic for us to keep having 5s?
Yeah.
We don't want to have less people competing. We've already spoken about possibly how ways that we could expand the challenge, or you could expand the challenge to have more teams come. But should that team be a 5 or a 4? Because it's a lovely buffer to have. But when does it... I can't remember last time I rode a 5.
it is a topical conversation across many fire and rescue services at the moment. And many services have moved their minimal and optimal crewing levels.
With tactical and variable response vehicles,
there's lots of different varying response models out there now. And I think, as a committee, we've gently asked ourselves that question. And I think, again, these are the sorts of things that collectively, over the next couple of years, we'll start to really have a look and have a discussion with services, because actually what the challenge needs to remain is something that is beneficial to the services. Yeah. So it's not just us sitting here making these decisions. Yeah. It needs to be engagement with all the fire and rescue services to say, is the challenge providing something that's fit for purpose for you to take back feedback, learning, experience, exposure, that's of benefit. So, it's a good question. It's an open question, I think. And I think it's something that, we'll keep looking at and keep talking to services about.
Yeah, because ultimately, even though it's the ride 4, and certainly our service does, but we are trying to get crew so we can at least ride some occasions 5. It's still recognised, I think, as that optimum best practice. 4 is still perfectly viable and perfectly a safe system of work. But of course, 20% more staff is always going to be welcomed.
Yeah. But everyone's facing such tremendous financial challenges all over the place, and I'm scared we'll start moving away from force. It shouldn't be a race to the bottom. We spoke about informing national training and best practice. That's ultimately what this is all about. Can you see examples where these sort of collaborative working groups are starting to feed into training doctrine in services? Because you said, Michelle, this is the first time we've had as many services as you've had here. All of those taking those learnings. Are you seeing the feed through of them flowing into training doctrine into national levels? Do you get, do you remain in contact with the people and how they're trying to put this in? They said, we saw this at the MBAC and we'd love some more information about it. Can you connect us with anyone? All that sort of stuff.
That's definitely happening, possibly on more informal route, but certainly Michelle's worked on it on behalf of them this year. We're trying to get that formal feed in with the NOG team as well. So we're going in at a national level so we can cascade that much easier and that more consistently. We still want to maintain that informal arrangement. With all
When's the last time you had the leader of the NFCC come to this?
Oh, only last year.
Phil Garrigan, NFCC
chair. Last year?
Yeah, he spoke at the awards.
I didn't see him. I probably did. That's terrible. Sorry, Phil.
And Phil Garrigan has been a great supporter
Phil
of MBAC.
He
last year he came out and watched majority of the exercises. It's unfortunate he's not been able to make it this year, but I think the National Fire Chiefs Council and principal officer support of NBAC is so important. We need senior officers to A, support teams coming here, but B, understand what we're trying to achieve, and the way in which we're building those relationships with Phil, with NOG. We've got essentially a captive audience in terms of specialists in their own right, whether it's BA, whether it's incident command, in terms of the assessor team. They're seeing everything that's happening nationally throughout the year, and we come together as a team once a year. And I think the value in having all of that in one space at one time, we need to make best use of it. So the way in which we're doing that is building relationships, like we've said, with NOG, with NFCC. We can hopefully be part of influencing change and best practice.
Yeah. At the minute, you feel it's more informal, that it's feeding, but you want it to feed from the ground up. Because that's where you get your champions all going back to the services.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. I'm going to go for a completely shameless plug. We are expanding as a challenge, and what we want to do is expand that assessor pool as well. A lot of our key figures have moved on through retirement and various other bits. We want to expand that this year. So
I'm going to apply. I haven't failed an application in at least 2 weeks, so I need to put another one in somewhere to get turned away.
So we'll stick something on the website mbac.co.uk before this comes out. So there's something live for people to apply. What we're going to do is increase that breadth. So we can't promise everybody a spot, but if a service hasn't got a spot in, it's highly likely that we'll get them in, because we want to try and get that breadth of knowledge. So it's a two-way street. They can feed into NBAC, and obviously we've got more people to feed back as well.
So this will go out about 2 weeks after the challenge. Are we able to divulge some of the best practices that we had this year? Are we hitting the runners and riders?
I was out, as in you want,
Yeah. So who were some of our best practice for this year? Who do we need to give something on? Obviously, all of the teams did no one got injured. First and foremost, no one got injured.
I think
which is great.
What we'll start with actually this year, we've seen what has been a really steady and consistent performance from everyone.
Yeah.
So, firstly, no one's been injured.
Yeah.
We've had what we would say, no terrible.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect that. We've got good firefighters, competent firefighters, and incident commanders coming to the challenge. So we've had such a really good level of standard and performance out there that we've seen now across the spread of awards given. It's spread out across lots of different services, which is a really nice thing to see. Historically, you'd have a really outstanding team and they'll walk away with a whole bunch of prizes. But I think this year's spread of awards really gives a demonstration of actually...
That's a tribute to stuff like this, because it's that rising tide raising all the ships, rather than that old Matthew principle, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, your big brigades with big training centres are the top performers. You go, well, that's obvious, that's not fair.
And I always start off my feedback with, look, you're at a national challenge. Nobody turns up here and performs poorly. You're already performing at a really good standard.
Now we're getting some regionals as well, so we're feeding them in.
What we're going to do is nitpick, and that's the only way we can separate the teams these days, is nitpicking.
So who have we got?
We go to the top 3 overall. Or do you want to?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to each discipline.
No, that's
the overall
fine.
teams. Is that all right?
We'll direct people to the website afterwards anyway.
Yeah, of course. So third this year, which were last year's winners, Gloucestershire. So again, another good performance to keep it in the top 3.
They'll be happy with that.
There's technically...
Sam will hate it because he just always wants first, but that's
technically
fine.
only one way to go, unfortunately, when you're in top spot. But to keep it in the top 3, really good.
Yeah.
Second, South York Central.
Nice.
Same as last year. However, we are aware that it's a different physical team than last year. So that's
a different team for the Gloucestershire slot as well.
Yeah, exactly. And a first win, definitely, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's their first win.
First win for Mid and West Wales.
Yeah.
Mid and West Wales. They will be thrilled. Dominic had the incident command one from last year, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Great team. I always love their approach for it. I want to be respectful of our times. We've got a lovely little awards evening to go to, but final ask for all of you. One little piece of advice for a team or a service that hasn't attended yet or has attended, for them coming next year, what's a bit of advice you'd give to them?
Look, we'll get entries out again in January, so get on the website, watch the videos and things like that, and the podcasts are on there as well. Get on there and look at a bit more detail and get in contact sooner rather than later. Okay. I guess from a top tip side of things.
I definitely know I'm coming. What should I be thinking about?
Certainly what I've seen today, ticks are a lot more prevalent than they ever used to be. I certainly remember at the start of my career when there was like 2 in the entire service.
We went from not used to performatively being waved around to now actually using it as a tactical tool and using the feedback.
But it just needs that, and that's why it was our CPD event today around tactical use of ticks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Time spent on a tick isn't wasted. So, 10, 20 seconds, understanding what that tick's telling you buys you minutes. And I think, we could definitely see an improvement in that around it. And it's ultimately, it's a comparative tool. It's not that spot temperature says X, so it must mean it's physically that. It's what's it compared to everything else. So, definitely more use of the ticks.
Not just the BA crews, we're talking incident commanders, use of the tick externally to highlight the hotspots, to highlight, to make their briefing more comprehensive. Again, really useful tool, underused in some cases.
Yourself, Michelle?
Mine's probably a little bit more basic than yours in going to the detail of ticks. Mine would be, if you're coming for the first time, come here, treat it as you would going out to any other incident. Do what you do it well, but NBAC isn't just about turning up here. It's about the weeks, months preparation of practice, training, and that's what we're all about, encouraging people to take pride in their profession, train hard, be confident and competent in what they do. So enjoy the whole journey, turn up and have a good time.
Awesome. Guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me once again. It's an absolute privilege to come and meet all of your assessors and instructors and to see all the great people from all the services come in and trying to raise that professional bar as we sort of continue on this journey that is the fire service. But congratulations on another great year, and I will hopefully see you next year.
Awesome.
Thanks, mate.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.